Welcome to the Love Your Inner Athlete podcast, your go-to source for all things mental fitness in sports. Whether you're an athlete, coach, or parent, you will learn as you join us to dive into inspiring conversations with those who have worked to develop their mental fitness. You will hear from people who have put in the work as either an athlete, coach, or a parent. In each episode, we bring you discussions and expert insights on developing resilience, focus, and mindset. Discover the concepts of mental fitness and learn how to use it to create consistent, durable confidence in both sports and life. I'm your host, Hans Schulste. Let's get started. Welcome to the Inner Athlete podcast, where we talk all things mental fitness. Today, we're pleased to be joined by Joe Dziedzic, a high school coach. He coaches currently at Breck, just took that position, played in the NHL for a bit, runs his own hockey training facility, JD Hockey, which is in New Brighton. Pleased to have him on. We got acquainted working with one of his youth teams. So thanks for being here, Joe.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and happy to talk some hockey and everything that goes with it.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, can you tell me where you grew up playing?
Yeah, I grew up northeast Minneapolis, played for Edison Youth Hockey, which is no longer. Back when I was growing up, the city had about 7 individual youth programs with their feeder programs into their high school. And that's dwindled down over the years, and now it's one program. There's still 7 high schools, basically, but there's one hockey team through the whole city of Minneapolis. And I coached there for 13 years, but growing up in Northeast, played for Edison. From there, went on and played for the Gophers, and then I had a 5-year pro career.
So how long did you play for the Gophers?
It was 90 through 94, and my senior year was kind of unfortunate. Our team got to the Frozen Four, and I was sitting in the stands with a broken arm. I had a plate and some screws put in my left forearm. I got hit and just got unlucky and broke it and had to have surgery and ended up missing that Frozen Four. And so I had a good seat from the bench, but I couldn't play.
Oh, that's too bad. So Doug Woog was your coach?
Doug Woog was the coach. Bill Butters. Yeah. We had a lot of good players, a lot of good future NHL players that were on those teams. We were loaded and we had a very skilled team, but never did take home the prize.
Did you play juniors or did you go right from
Edison? I came right from high school. Won Mr. Hockey in 1990, and then went right from there to the U of M and jumped right in. And looking back, now it seems like more and more players are, playing a year or even 2 years of junior hockey to kind of get stronger, get better, and work on their game before they move on to play college. But back then, most guys went right into college.
Yeah, well, that's something that's changed quite a bit since you played.
No doubt.
So you play for the Gophers for 4 years. You go to the Frozen Four, and then you go on to a pro career, right? And did you go straight to Pittsburgh or what?
No, I spent the first year I was in the minor leagues. I was in Cleveland. Okay. And that was the year when the 1994-95, the NHL had a lockout. Okay. And locked the players out. And so I was going to go to the minors no matter what because there wasn't an NHL season. Yeah. And it wasn't until January where they had the labor dispute was figured out and the NHL played like a 48 game season that year. And that was the year New Jersey won the Stanley Cup. But so I was in Cleveland for that year. And then the next year after that, where I was in Pittsburgh for the next couple of years. Okay.
So what was it like playing in Pittsburgh?
It was a dream come true. It was something that, it was a long time in the process trying to get there. But when I finally did get there and got to play, it takes you a while to kind of feel like you belong and that you should be there. And I think that's part of growing up and getting confidence and testing what you can do, what you can get away with, and things that, there's a balance of finding what you think you're good at or what your role should be and what the coaches want you to be. And there's a little bit of give and take, and then you figure out, okay, this is going to be my role. If I'm going to stick, this is what I need to do. And that takes some time.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. How did you navigate that?
Well, now that I'm a coach and I try to, be clear and upfront with my players and say, these are what our expectations that we have for you. And if we feel that you're doing this part of the deal, then you're going to get playing time. And back then it was kind of like you had to figure it out on your own. Like, where do you fit in? They didn't really tell you. They just said, hey, you kind of learn it on the fly. They don't really tell you this is what you're going to do. They're not going to tell you to go out there and fight. But if you go out there and fight, well, then they might be like, hey, good job. Or they're not going to tell you to go out there and hit. But if you go out there and play physical, all of a sudden that's kind of like your identity. And you got to learn real quick that you better have an identity. You better have something that you bring to the table or you're not going to be around.
Oh, yeah. So they got to see your value and you got to show them the value.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
So you played with Mario Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr. What was that like?
It was awesome. Those guys, two of the maybe top 10 players or top 5 even of all time as far as points. And Mario is probably the most skilled player ever to play. Both guys had huge confidence level within themselves. Their inner confidence was something that I'd never seen anything like that before. They just always believed that they were one of the best guys on the ice and they would prove it and they would back it up. And just remember watching them and seeing them in practice and kind of mimicking some of the things that they would try to do. And I was kind of a little bit in awe. And then as I got more used to them and got to know them, that kind of wore off a little bit. But just a great guys off the ice, super talented on the ice. Pretty lucky and fortunate to be able to play with them.
Do you ever talk with them at all anymore?
I haven't seen Mario for, 6, 7 years, but I haven't seen Jagr for a while. I wish I would have stayed in contact with him a little bit, but it's one of those deals where when you see him, it kind of feels like, we're just with them a couple months ago or something. It seems like they're just really good guys, easy to talk to, easy to get along with, super classy.
So what were the kinds of things you learned from them?
Man, I tell you how to be pros, how to approach your job and prepare and get ready. And those guys were so gifted athletically and they were so far. I mean, they were the elite of the elite. They're the top 1% of the NHL. And I couldn't do what they did. I just wasn't good enough at that level. And so I had to know that, they're going to do this to be their effective. And for me to be effective, I've got to be an energy guy. I had to be the guy that was going to finish checks and going to do the blocking shots and take on a role and make sure to do that role. As if you don't do it, they're going to replace it just like that. So what I learned from those guys is just, they always felt like their confidence was never down, even when they weren't playing well or maybe going a few games without scoring goals. It just seemed like they get back on the ice and they were expecting to score all the time. And that's something that is really hard to do as an NHL player, to get goals every game. And those guys that go out there and do it. And one year I played with Mario, he had 65 goals. He missed probably 10 games that year. One game he had 5 goals. He could have had 8. He had a couple of crossbars that game. What's that?
Was that the game where he had 5 different ways?
He had five different ways. That's a good trivia question. I'll ask kids that. There's 5 situations you can score in hockey. It's the power play, the penalty kill, even strength, penalty shot. That's the hard one. Yeah. And then empty netter. So he scored 5 goals in 5 different ways. And that was when he played against New Jersey. And I wasn't with the team at that time, but a little bit of trivia for you.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything that you use today that you got from them or from that experience in Pittsburgh or Arizona?
Oh yeah. I think between the 4 years of college and 5 years of being a pro, I thought, there's things you pick up bits and pieces from different coaches or different teams. Maybe some coaches were really good X's and O's and really good with systems, but maybe other coaches were better at motivating or getting you having a better relationship as far as being connected and feeling you had value to the team. I think those are things that are both important. And I think I try to use a little bit of, whether it's the guys I played with or the coaches I played under, that I try to bring a little bit of what they brought to their teams. And I try to do a little bit of that to the teams that I coach. And I think that gives me a little bit more experience. It gives you confidence that when you're dealing with kids that you've been in situations like this before, they're going through things that you've been through. And I think that's a huge part of coaching, is knowing that if you've been in those situations where maybe a kid is struggling and he's not playing well, or maybe there's a kid that you have to come down and discipline a little bit harder, you've maybe gone through those things before and you know how to handle it a little bit better.
So how important was the mental side of the game in college and the NHL?
Very underrated. I think it's huge. I think it's something that it's just getting more and more exposed to now, I think. And
Mhm.
obviously, working with that, with the players that, the mental side of the game, whether it's just preparing visionary, visualizing things going on and kind of playing the game in your head before the game starts. There's something to be said for that. I think, I try to get my players to do it. I always talk to them about, preparation and doing the physical things, but what about the preparation for the mental things? Like, okay, you're on a quick 2-on-1 and the guy you're with is a left-handed shot and you're coming down the left side. How do you get the puck? Where should it be? And all those type of things that are going to happen just like that.
Mhm.
If you can visualize it in your head beforehand, I think it maybe helps slow the game down a little bit. It maybe allows you to see the ice from above, let's say, and figure out that you have a little bit more time to make plays. And I think that can go a long way with having success. And the difference between being successful and unsuccessful is a pretty thin line. And I think if you're, prepared and confident and had visualization techniques, that can be a big difference for you.
So do you see confidence as a skill, emotion, or both?
I think it's both. I think it is. No doubt that the guys that, whether you're Lemieux or Yager, that super skilled, like top skilled players, but they also had the mindset to go with it to be, so confident in themselves that, if they struggled or did something, they knew they were going to make up for it. Like they weren't ever afraid to make mistakes. That was probably the one thing I learned is they didn't care if they made a mistake because they knew they could make up for it and score 2 or 3 goals. And to have that type of mindset, that was something that I really admired and, would like to have that type of viewpoint to the game to say like, hey man, if I mess up, it's not a big deal. I know I'm going to get another chance. If you're a lower end guy in the lineup and you mess up and make mistakes, you're probably not going to get the chance to be on the power play and run plays and make
Yeah.
things happen in a positive way. So it's a balance thing there, right? If you're a bottom six forward or if you're a top six forward, you probably have a little bit more rope to make mistakes if you're a top six guy.
So how do you help young players build confidence and keep it?
A big thing is I think just the way you approach and deal with them. I think I try to connect with players and try to get a connection going with them, whether it's just talking to them about non-hockey things and show them that you care about them as a human, not just as a player. Once they know that you care about them and that you have interest in them and you want to know how they're doing in school or how their parents or how their family's doing or how their dog's doing, I think
Yeah.
that kind of gives you, like a bond between the coach and player. And I think that if you have good bonds with all your players, that it's going to pay off in the end some way, somehow.
Okay. So when I presented to your Pee Wee team,
Yeah.
what do you remember about that? And what parts of the presentation do you think helped your players the most?
Wow, that was great. I thought the part where we did the what was the one you had to scan
Oh, the
and
grids?
the grids and
Yes.
you had to find the numbers, remember?
Yeah. Yep.
And I thought that was great. Just talking about the state of mind, like how are you playing your best? How are you feeling when you're playing your best? You're feeling, that you're trustworthy. You're feeling that you're positive and you're hardworking and you have these thoughts that are, kind of pushing you the needle towards making something happen in a positive way.
Mhm.
And I think our team was going through a little bit of a deal where, we were struggling and I think guys were kind of pointing fingers and saying it's their fault or their fault. And nobody was taking ownership. And I thought after we had our session that it kind of got things back pointed in the right direction and our team started to play better. And that
So
was
you felt like it was effective.
Oh, it was effective. Yeah. And we even took on a thing where they sang a song together,
Yeah.
do it in locker rooms, before the game. And it's just something that kind of break the ice for the boys. And it was kind of silly, but it was at the same time, it kind of got the guys going and brought some good energy.
Yeah. Well, you kind of referenced this earlier, but do you see, like, since you've played or even in the last 10 years, that working on your mental game has become more normalized and less stigmatized?
Yeah, it was a big no-no back in the 90s, even early 2000s. I think if you were to go to a coach or somebody in the front office and say, hey, I'm struggling with this, or I'm having some anxiety issues, or I'm having trouble sleeping, or I'm not feeling that I belong or something, anything that showed weakness, you never wanted to put that out there because if you did, what was going to be the circumstance? What was going to happen because of that? And so guys just wouldn't talk about it. They wouldn't bring it up. They wouldn't say anything, and they would kind of bury it. And I think for some guys, when they want to, they deal with it in different ways. Some guys might take to drinking or drugs and to deal with certain things or the pressure. And like I always tell guys, if you're a top guy in the NHL, you're Kirill Kaprizov. He's got pressure on him to perform. He's got pressure on him. He's making, $9 or $10, $12 million a year. He's got to put up points. And the team has to win. Mm-hmm. If you're a guy who's a fourth liner, who's in and out of the lineup, he's also got pressure, but it's a different type of pressure. It's the type of pressure where he's got to be, however many minutes he gets in the game, he has to somehow make a positive effect to the game. Could be finishing checks, could be blocking shots, could be getting in a fight, something, but it's going to have to be a positive so that he can stay and come back to the next game or the next week or the next month. Mm-hmm. And so the pressure for that player is totally different than the pressure of the guy who's making a lot of money, but they're both equally stressful to the mind and to the brain. And some guys have a hard time dealing with that. And some guys, I think, can, they can kind of talk about it, or it seems like there's more resources now to talk through those things, or guys like you that can say, hey man, I'm having some trouble with this. And what can I do and you, hey, no, you're not the first guy. Other guys have had those issues. Back then, it seemed like if you did that, you were kind of seen as weak, or maybe somebody that just doesn't have it. And I don't know, man, if you would have talked back in the 90s about your feelings, or if you're having anxiety or nervousness or any of those things, it seems like they would find somebody else to take your spot. It's like, really? I don't know. That's just something that I think has changed for the better of the game. That's a good thing.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit to coaching. So what do you find as the most satisfying part of coaching high school or youth players?
Well, I like the competition part. That's number one. I would say I like competing and winning, but I like more than that. I like seeing a player taking something that I've offered them. Could be mental preparation. It could be a skill that we worked on. It could be something tactically on the ice. And then when it works out, like we talked about, and then it's like, they'll come back to the bench and they'll kind of smile at me like, yeah, you were right. And I think, right, just like that. I think that's what most coaches like, to have that feedback from a player, to be like, hey, whatever I said to him or whatever we did, we worked on, it actually worked out. And I think there's a satisfaction to that. There's something that kind of gets you pumped up and gets your hairs on the back of your neck going when you see players, when you tell them to work on things and it turns out the way that you talked about. That doesn't always happen, but when it does, I think that's the reason why you want to keep coaching.
Okay. So you coach kids from like 7 different schools. Was it ever challenging to create a team culture with that?
It could have been a challenge. I don't think it really was, because a lot of these guys played together growing up, and they lived in different parts of the city. And so they would, they wouldn't see each other during the school day, but then they'd come to the rink and then it was like their buddies again. And we kind of use that as a rallying point. To be honest, it wasn't that big a deal. And I think hockey players are hockey players. Once they get to the rink, guys are razzing each other, giving each other a hard time and having fun and just messing around. And it was just different for us as opposed to most high schools, because our guys usually didn't see each other all day.
So what role do you think culture plays in team success?
Yeah, I think the head coach, he kind of sets the culture. And I think to me, culture is what you allow and what you don't allow. And whether it's behavior, could be, just things where you're out in public and, you look the part of a hockey player, you're dressed well, you're representing your team well, you're not using bad language, you're not treating people wrong. It's just, those are the things that the culture, and that starts with the head coach. I think the head coach kind of draws a line and says, we're going to allow this and we're not going to allow that. And I think once the players get on board with that, it starts to take care of the culture, takes care of itself. And the older players are helping the younger players. Where back in my day, it was kind of like you never helped the younger player because, they're younger and they need to, whether it's hazing and all those things that you would go through that really, hopefully it doesn't happen too much anymore. But back in the day, hazing was kind of a big thing, especially for college. And now I think they've clamped down on that a lot. But back in the day, it was, well, they did it to me, so I'm going to do it to the younger guys.
Yeah.
And the sooner a coach can kind of break that up and say, hey, this is a freshman or a sophomore, but they're a good player and they can help us. So we got to treat them right. We're going to show them the right way. We're going to treat them with respect. I think that, again, goes back to what the coach allows and the culture that they set.
So could you give me your coaching philosophy in like a couple of sentences?
Yeah, I've got a couple of things that we have that I would say, maybe, I don't know if it's the philosophy of just the way we want to do things. Is number one is we want to, treat other people like you want to be treated. And I think that's a big one. Number two is respect the program. And that is, again, the way you dress, the way you talk, the way you behave off the ice, in the classroom, all those type of things are going to reflect on your program. And so you don't want to do anything that's going to hurt your program. So big thing on respect, big thing on just treating people the right way. And then as far as on ice and hockey, we want to be like those honey badgers, we want to be, we're just relentless and we're going to come at you. We're not going to keep coming. We're going to try to outwork you. We're going to outcompete you. And we're going to try and really stay on you for 3 periods. And that's something that we try to stress. And in order to do that, you have to be in good shape. You have to be conditioned, and not only conditioned physically, but conditioned mentally, so that when things are starting to go bad, when there's adversity, the refs you seem like you're not getting the calls or you're just not getting any puck bounces. If you're mentally disciplined and you're mentally focused on the task, man, your chances to have success go way up. When something goes wrong, because things are going to go wrong, right? Somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody's going to mess up. Somebody's going to take a penalty that, we shouldn't have taken. And all of a sudden now, there's a minute left in the game. We took a penalty at the worst time ever. Mm-hmm. And how are we going to overcome it? How are we going to get by this? How are we going to get through? And, having a team that has unity, a team that's cohesive, a team that's bought in to what your goal is, man, that makes a huge difference in the end.
So what life lessons do you think you end up teaching through coaching hockey?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think maybe I should have touched on that earlier when you said, what about your favorite part of coaching is teaching those life lessons, like, hey, if you cut corners, it's going to catch up to you. I always tell guys, hey, those who cut corners eventually get cut. So if you're a guy that goes from the front of the line to the back line and skips out on reps, or maybe is late for weight training, or, those little things that can add up, and the life lessons that you can learn and get out of coaching, I think that is probably the biggest thing that, the biggest thing you can take away from sports, and any sport really. It's just the life lessons, whether it's how to work with others, how to be respectful of guys, not to be jealous of other people's success, and be a good team player. All those things that you can say you get out of, hockey are going to help you later on in life when you're working for a company and trying to make a living.
So tell me about how you started JD Hockey and Dusty Tukes.
Well, it wasn't planned. It was something that just kind of happened. When I got my career ended, I had an eye injury. I was in a fight, and I got a finger in the eye and tore my retina. So my retina collapsed, and I had to have a big surgery to put my retina back together and put my eye back together. And so that's what made me get out of the game. And then I still had a couple of credits left at the U of M to get my degree. So I finished those up right away.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking about what to do. And I ran into Diane Ness, who runs Pro Edge Power Skating.
Yeah.
And she asked me to come around and help out, and I did. And then one thing led to another, and I started my own hockey training programs. And then that led to leagues, and that led to teams, and that ran to 3-on-3 programs and lessons and camps. And it just kind of took off from there. And now I've got my own training facility in New Brighton, where I've got synthetic ice and a turf area. So I'm training guys there. I got camps. I do lessons with players. I've run 3-on-3 leagues, and then my Dusty Tukes is my AAA program that I have now 10 teams at 6 different levels. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of taken off, and I really wasn't planning on doing any of it. It's just as I look back, I wanted to stay in the game, and I liked coaching and working with kids and being a mentor to the players, and that just took on its life of its own. And here I am, 52 years old, and now I'm doing this full time.
Very cool. That's a great story.
Yeah.
So when you train players, what do you focus on the most?
Well, depending on the age, depending on the skill level, I would say the number one thing usually is skating. It's just skating technique.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be power skating, could be edge work, it could be transitions, it could be stride work. There's like 100 things you could work on with skating. Number two would be puck skills, and now that I think about it, one thing I should probably work on more is just the mental side of sports and how you get confidence. And how do you get confidence? Well, it's just like anything. If you do something every day, there's a good chance you're going to be good at it. And if you do something and you like to do it, you want to do it versus somebody's telling you to do it, I think that's a huge difference maker. But I would say skating is one, puck skills two. But maybe now that you got talking here, maybe I should do some more mental work with the players and just how to prepare, how to focus, and how to bounce back when you make a mistake. That's a big one. I think too many kids, hockey's a game of mistakes. You're going to mess up. Things are going to go wrong. And then how do you flip the switch to get back to feeling good about your game if you mess up and they score a goal on you? Well, that's why I like when you have good teammates and somebody comes up and says, hey, don't worry about it. We'll get it back. Those type of things that go on.
You know what? I'm going to send you a couple of books.
Sweet.
The books that I wrote, I'll just get, when we're done, I'll get your mailing address and mail them to you.
That'd be great.
Yeah. That. So, what do you think is different today about hockey and sports than when you played?
Oh, good. That's a great one. I think no doubt about it. The money involved today is so much bigger than when I grew up. And it seems like everybody's got an angle. Everybody's got an agenda to make some money because there's money out there to be made. I have some friends that came up here from Texas and they were playing AAA hockey down in Dallas, and they were spending upwards between 30 and 40,000 a year to travel around to play youth hockey in Dallas. And they came up here and moved up here and are playing now, and they're probably paying $2,000 or maybe it's $2,500 to play for the whole season. Whereas in some of these other parts of the countries, they're paying $30,000, $40,000. And man, that's a lot of money to be paying for a 12-year-old to play hockey. So I think the biggest difference back then is just the business opportunities that people are spending money to get trained to play. And when I grew up, we didn't play hockey 12 months a year. We played basically from October to March, and then it was time to pick up tennis racket or a golf club or baseball bat and do other things. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. I would play sports all the time. I would play baseball in the spring. I was playing football in the fall. I'd play hockey in the winter. And then it seemed like in the summer, I would add other sports, basketball, tennis, or wrestling. And I just had more athletic mindset, or I had more athletic goals, not just playing hockey. And I think now that I'm doing hockey all the time, I see a lot of kids that are doing hockey 12 months a year. And I don't know if that's for the better.
Well, what advice would you give young players and their parents about what it takes to play at the next level?
Well, I would say, one, enjoy where you're at. Enjoy, if you're a peewee, enjoy being a peewee. If you're a bantam, if you're a high school player, enjoy. Don't be in a rush to get to the next level. You'll get there soon enough. Mm-hmm. But I think too many people want to leave early. They leave high school early to go play junior, or they want to leave junior and get to college quicker, or they want to leave college to get to pro. And I think if you're good enough, you're going to get there. Mm-hmm. But I think too many kids, I feel like, are in a rush to hurry, get somewhere. And it's like, just slow down, enjoy where you're at. Mm-hmm. No doubt you have to work hard and you have to compete, and you're going to have to go through some things like injuries or maybe coaches that don't maybe play or see the value that you bring to a team. There's all kinds of things that are going to happen that are going to affect you, and you have to overcome some of those things. And a lot of kids, I think maybe mom and dad are a little bit too protective or helicopter parenting, and they're being too protective of their kid. You got to let your kid fail once in a while, let them figure it out, and let them decide if that's really what they want to do. I think to get to the NHL, to get to the NBA, to get to the NFL, it's only the 1% that are going to get there. And if it was 20% or 30%, well, then it wouldn't be such a big deal. But it is, because it's just that 1% that make it all the way to the top level. The pyramid is shaped like this for a reason, right? There's not a lot of room for everybody up top. Mm-hmm. And I think people just got to enjoy being a kid and let them have some fun, let them have some failure, and let them have, it's not the end of the world if you get cut from your Bantam A team. And I know I've played with a lot of guys that didn't play Pee Wee AA, they didn't play Bantam AA. All of a sudden, high school, they took off, they had a growth spurt, and then they figured things out in high school, ended up being Division I players, ended up being pro players. But if you would have saw them when they were 9, 10, 11 years old, you would have never thought that, they'd be an NHL player. And so you can't always tell which kids are going to turn out to be the best ones.
One last question about coaching.
Sure.
What advice would you give to parents that coach their own kids? Because I think you've done that, right?
Yes.
And tell me a little bit about the advice and what that's like, or the pitfalls.
Yeah, there's definitely some pitfalls. It's rewarding too. You get to spend more time with your kid. You get to challenge them in different ways. There's dad, and then there's the coach, and there has to be two different hats that you're wearing when you're being a coach of your own kids. And I'm making sure that if I get on a player, I'm also going to get on my son if he does something, if he's late, if he forgets something, or he does something that's against our team rules. I'm going to make sure that he has to pay the punishment just like anybody else. So the pitfalls are maybe sometimes you can be over consuming to the point where you're trying to make sure you're not favoriting your kid. And so sometimes you could be too hard on your kid. That's an issue I've seen with some parents that coach kids. But I think, just be yourself. And if you are in the game for the right reasons, you want to give back to the game, you want to help kids, you want to be a mentor to kids. I think if there's parents out there that want to coach their kid, go for it. I think to me, the rewards are worth it versus the setbacks of maybe, I'm sure it costs some relationships, other families, when you have to cut some kids and then keep other kids. And all of a sudden now those parents aren't, they're not talking to you anymore. And it's like, well, hey, it's not you. It's just your kid wasn't ready to make the team yet.
Yeah.
But sometimes if parents that have gone through what I've gone through, they know what I mean when I say it's cost them some relationship with some friends that you thought were friends. And it turns out they don't want to talk to you now because you cut their kid.
Yeah. I've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for your time today. I do remember watching you play for the Gophers. We're about the same age. You were ahead of me in school a year, but
okay.
I remember watching you. I think, who were the guys that were on your team that people might know?
Oh, geez, there's a bunch. Craig Johnson ended up playing a bunch of years with the LA Kings. Jeff Nielsen played for the Wild. Trent Klatt played a lot of years. Darby Hendrickson's a good player. Chris McAlpine played in the NHL.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of guys that bring back some good memories from my college days. It seems like it was just yesterday, and another way, it seems like it was a lifetime ago. But
did you play all your games in Old Mariucci, or were you?
No, we played so good. I had 3 years in the old rink, and then the first year of the new, well, not new anymore, but the new Mariucci was my last year at the U.
What was it like shooting on that end with Williams Arena on the other side?
So it was great. We used to do a bunch of fun stuff. Like we would get pucks on our stick and try to throw them up as high as we could. We still couldn't even get close to touching the roof because it was so high. Yeah. They would have those lights that would hang down.
Yeah.
But, you'd have goalie the Gopher up by those windows.
Yeah.
And the whole crowd, whenever there was a whistle or stoppage in play, everybody would look at the Gopher. And even the players on the bench, we'd watch the Goldie the Gopher, and he would do his knee chants, or he would do different things with the crowd. And it was this is what you did when you were playing in that old barn. It was a lot of character, had a lot of tradition. Even the smells, like when you'd walk into the rink, you could smell. It's like, this is Mariucci. You just knew what the smell was.
Well, and they had those old school benches.
Oh yeah,
and we used to go and sit in the general admission at the far end. Yeah, you could rush tickets before the game, and
you get them real cheap for like $5. You can get in there, and then we used, it's funny because the locker rooms were downstairs, so you'd have to walk down a hallway and then go up like 2 flights of stairs to get to the ice level, and then walk out onto the rink. And they're not making rinks like that anymore, where the locker room's down in the basement.
Yeah, those are some of my fondest family memories, was going to Gopher games as a kid with my entire extended family.
Yeah.
And what we do is we'd usually pick a weekend where the hockey team had a series and then there was a basketball game on Saturday afternoon.
Get a
and then
twofer.
we go, you've probably been to this place. We'd go to Manning's Bar and Grill.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Great
Over
spot.
at Como. Yeah.
Yeah. Como.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for your time, Joe.
Okay, Hans.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. And
all right, bud. Take care.
thank you. Bye.